Hi guys. So I've touched off the topic of control quite a bit in a few more recent posts, and I always get a good bit of feedback on this topic from both clients and from people who follow my content. So I thought I'd do a full video about it today, just talking about where our need for control comes from and how we can relinquish it a little bit. Now, our need for control is almost an evolutionary thing. I mean, if you think about it, the more in control you are of your environment, the more predictable your environment is, the less likely you are to be harmed. I mean, we like things safe, we like things the same, we like things predictable. However, oftentimes our need for control is based on a complete lack of control of our internal experience. And that, by internal experience, I'm talking about our thoughts, our impulses, our desires, and our emotional experience. And when we feel completely at conflict internally, when we feel completely out of control, we find safety in feeling like we can exert control on external circumstances. And so we try to control other people, we try to control our environment, try to control situations. Now, unfortunately, this backfires on us because ultimately, when we try to control things, ultimately they end up controlling us. We're completely at their mercy because if things go right, then that's fine. We feel safe, we feel on top of things. Whereas if things don't go as we planned out, or people don't act or say the things that we had anticipated, then we are in for a bit of a gunk. It's a disappointment and it feels quite scary for us. And it feels, this whole sense of loss of control, not being on top of things, and it causes quite a significant amount of anxiety. So, as I said, when you place all of your security and your safety in external circumstances, then you're always putting yourself at danger because ultimately you have no control over other people, really. You have very little control over the way your life pans out. Yes, you can put a certain amount of input and influence over it, but ultimately things are always going to play out the way that they play out, and you cannot predict everything. This is why you should focus on creating internal control, and that's creating an awareness of the way in which your emotions are impacting on your day-to-day life. I mean, ultimately you can't control how you feel, but you can control the impact that those feelings have on your thoughts and on your behaviors, and the way you allow yourself to ruminate in those feelings. And I always come back to a great model. It's I think it's Stephen Covey is the guy's name. I'll have to check that out, but it's he basically talks about the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And the circle of concern is huge, and we tend to focus a lot on that. And this includes our job, it includes other people, our friends, our partners, and all of these things that we worry about and we think about and that we try to influence. And then we have our circle of influence, and these are things that we can actually have some influence over, and we spend far too much time in the bigger circle worrying about things, somehow thinking that if we worry about them or if we think about them a lot, it somehow exerts some level of control over them. Whereas if we focus more on our circle of influence, then we can actually make changes, and they may be very subtle. And again, people underestimate the impact that small little changes and small little differences can make. We think that everything has to be massive. We have to control all of everything. Whereas ultimately, if we take small little steps towards changing things a little bit, towards maybe having discussions with other people, where we discuss how we're feeling and ultimately talk about how their behaviors are impacting on us, then we're more likely to make changes and we're more likely to feel in control. So it's about addressing, first of all, what is being driven by your emotional state. Why do you feel so out of control? What is causing that? Is there an underlying fear? Is there an underlying threat that you're not aware of? Is there something that you need to sit with, process, and accept. Because oftentimes, even with the model of, circle of influence and circle of concern, there are certain things in life that you will not be able to influence and that you have to be able to accept and sit with. And that's another thing that we don't sit easily with. We like to think that everything can be altered by us, and yet very little can. Oftentimes, it's all about accepting the things that are as they are. It's this whole concept of radical acceptance, which is accepting life on life's terms. And ultimately, the more you learn to work with your life as opposed to fighting against it, which most of us do on a daily basis, the more you can surrender to the reality that you have very little control over the external stuff, and then put the work in on the internal stuff. Staying in touch with your emotions, learning to sit with them, process them, feel them, honor them. And as I said, that's not just, that means, okay, you have to deal with a lot of negative stuff as well. You have to process a lot of difficult emotions. You have to have difficult conversations. And sometimes you have to accept stuff that just feels so goddamn unfair. And believe you me, I have fought with this quite a bit over the last 20 years, and it's still an ongoing battle. However, the more you can practice that, as opposed to looking at all of these things and feeling anxious because, you feel like things are slipping through your fingers, the better off you're going to be, the more at peace you're going to be, and the more you can focus on the things that are important, which are ultimately your peace of mind, having a purposeful way of living, having meaningful, deeply connected relationships, and just feeling like the world and life itself is a fairly good place, accepting the ups and downs that occur, and just being able to roll with it a little bit more. If you really struggle with exerting control over any specific area of your life, if you feel a need to hold on very tightly to something, or if you're attached to something and it's causing you anxiety because ultimately you're not getting the control that you require from it, then get in touch with me. I can help you work on your self-acceptance and creating an awareness of your internal environment. You'll reach me on my website. It's fundamentals.ie. You'll also catch me on Facebook and Instagram. Both of those pages are called Fundamentals, and I do lots of content, including this video, on my YouTube channel, which is called Fiona Feely. So go check it out, like, share and subscribe, and I'd really appreciate if you have anything that you would like to hear me discuss, if you get in touch with me, because I'm always happy to help out in any area that I can. Hope everyone has an amazing day.